regular or special meeting of the Emergency Services Efficiency Committee. Today is August 20th, 2018. Calling to order was the first item of business. The second item of business is listed as electing a chair, but we should see alternates since Ron Gantic is a regular member and not here.
Move to seat Stuart Cobb for
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. The next item of business is electing a chairman.
motion to nominate Pete Tanaka.
Second. Third. What? You do that. That was fast.
Any other nominations? Any discussion? All those in favor of Pete Tanaka as chairman?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Abstain.
Motion carries. Pete, your meeting.
Thank you very much. Call to order, elect chairman. Okay, item 3, discussion of goals and charge. I think what I'd like to do is set the meeting dates first, just to get that out of the way. Make sure we get that done, because this other, I think number 3 can go on for quite a while. Is there any suggestions?
I would suggest that it be a regular time. It certainly makes it easier for planning purposes between space and attendance.
Is it out of the norm to have it to do twice a month?
That's one of the things we got to discuss, is whether we want it twice a month or once a month, or what day of the week and that kind of stuff.
In my opinion, do it twice a month, and then, and not to put more burden on you, but that it be a regular agenda item on the Board of Selectmen's agenda that Pete, you could report on. Or someone could submit a written report to the Board of Selectmen if you can't be there. Just to keep it current.
And if you're going to do twice a month with this large group, maybe 2 different days in the month, if that, when you're looking at so many different schedules.
Yeah, fall gets complicated, especially with Board of Finance schedule, because once we get into budget season, well, not fall, but winter, once we get into budget season where it's every single
Tuesday or something.
Just to give you an idea, the calendar behind Tom has at least the land use meetings that are held down here. In addition to that, the second Tuesday of the month is Board of Ed, and first and third Mondays are Board of Selectmen.
I think finding a place is easier.
yeah.
It is,
So I think setting the dates would be the priority first, and then we'll find a home where we're gonna.
There you just have some mixed members from different boards.
I know we always all meet on Tuesdays as our regular meeting night or training nights. Would Monday or Wednesday work better to try to do this?
Wednesdays work better for me, because Mondays, just because of the Board of Selectmen meetings and a number of other meetings I have on Monday nights. Why everybody wants to meet on Monday, I have no idea, because I hate Mondays
Well, I find
anyways.
it's Tuesdays and Thursdays that we
Wednesday.
Wednesdays are great for me, as long as we
No board meeting. But if everyone can make it.
Bobby, any input?
Second and fourth Wednesday of every month?
Sounds good. Is that a motion?
I make a motion every second and fourth Wednesday of the
Put
month.
your key on stuff at all?
Not the second, yeah, that's why I did it, second and fourth.
Yeah, the second is the board, but
When, CIP is normally on like Tuesdays and Thursdays, right?
It really depends on the makeup of that board.
All
For
right.
several years it was only Wednesdays.
CIP usually was only 1 day a week, unless it got behind. But
All right.
but it varied by people's schedule of,
All right.
what do they say that?
I got the expert sitting right here, looking beyond.
And come budget season, there could be meetings every night of the week that are just
Uh-huh.
budget, so we may need to either press pause or change the date.
Or times or something. Any time on that?
6:30 work?
6:30 is,
All right.
yeah, start at that, I'd say 6:30.
So a motion of second and fourth Wednesdays at 6:30.
Second.
Couple of questions, Mr. Chairman. What's your, as far as alternates, just want to make sure everybody's on the same page. Obviously, I don't vote if I'm not seated. Can I, in discussion?
Absolutely.
Sure.
Yeah, no, just so everybody,
He's talking too much.
Oh, he's an alternate.
Everybody, even alternates can have discussion and just can't. vote.
Yeah, just as long as, so that I know and everybody knows.
Unless you don't like what you're saying.
Right, right.
Then we'll just shout you down. Okay.
On tape, huh?
Any other discussion on that?
Thank you for reminding me.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I will
Okay.
check with Robin as to location. We'll shoot for this room first and go from there.
You're a recording secretary, I think. Even better. Recording secretaries are the most valuable people in the room, as far as I'm concerned.
Oftentimes.
Okay, discussion of goals and charge. It's kind of an open topic. Since I've gotten, I'm going to take chairman's discretion here because
You should.
I should. Ever since I got this agenda, I've been thinking about this. I think one of the first things is, as far as efficiency is concerned, is communication. Make sure we're communicating, and I think that this committee is a starting place, but I'm not sure if we need more communication between the departments. I just think of the old Cold War days when the U.S. and Russia were on the phone all the time. They always had a guy talking to each other, so that should something bad come up or something different come up, we automatically had a way of communicating. Or even in a more extreme case, when Yukon Fire used to have a hotline to Yukon PD until the new department was built and the major killed that. So I think that discussing some form of communication should be on the list. Also, I'd like to see, sorry, did you have something, Mike?
No, go. I'm just
And the
picking up
second
my
thing
pencil to write.
is I'm trying to, I'd like to see some kind of form of working towards a common spending instead of competing for resources. So that if equipment is needed someplace, that instead of the other department saying, we too would like that piece of equipment, they would say, what kind of equipment can we get to, complement that instead of compete with it? These are just the things I'm thinking of. I come from the light side instead of the dark side, so I
You're in the wrong room to
world.
say
Right,
that.
and we can think of that. My suggestion to start, place to start, is why we're here, which was communication directly from the departments on discussion of possible consolidation and merger. That be the core of what we talk about. And some of, that
Right.
is why this committee, we used a committee that began looking at other things, but that is specifically why the departments came to the Board of Selectmen, asking to sit down at the table again.
I think that's a topic we should explore and keep our minds wide open on it.
One of the things that I don't know if everyone's had access to this, but the Willington Emergency Services Efficiency Committee from 2012, the charge was to explore feasibility and cost implications and make recommendations to the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance regarding the structure of emergency services for the town of Willington, with recommendations due by December 31st of 2011. So that was the initial charge of the original, the first committee. My opinion is I don't have any objection to what the first selectman said. If it's a reactivation of the emergency services committee, that's the actual charge. I think there was some question about what the actual charge of the committee was back then to reactivate it, but that is what it is.
Which kind of says the same thing that you said, except it doesn't focus on the communication piece you started with, but it basically is the same thing, right?
Well, I think what Erica stated was that.
I mean, you came to us
Yes.
direct, specifically
Yeah, we're
suggesting discussions about merger and consolidation.
Right.
This committee, we decided to use the charge of the committee at that point was very specific. It went from originally, the name was a very convoluted, that talked specifically about consolidating, and then it changed into how we could run more efficiently and what kind of savings we could have within the two departments. So I think
there's two-
initially it was a little twofold, and then it narrowed down to one path. But I would like to see something more specific, since again, that was the communication that was directed for the purpose of sitting down at the table at this time.
Yeah, I mean, respectfully, Mike, I think what the first selectman and what Pete said are, to me, are two very distinct, different things.
Yes.
One is what Pete mentioned to me is explore and try to gain some efficiencies, increase communication, some more input between the two departments regarding purchasing power, things like that. And then there's the goal of specifically looking at the feasibility of a combined emergency services unit.
Correct.
I agree. What I was saying was intended to be an agreement that basically that charge was sort of combining what Erica had said and what Pete said, except it didn't specify the communication part. But regardless, I mean, I think we're all talking about the same stuff. It's really the working together, which could be in the form of consolidation.
Well, would both leaderships of the departments agree that the goal of the group should be to explore the feasibility and make recommendations regarding consolidation of the two organizations?
As
Yes.
part of it, yes.
As part of it?
I don't think that should be the sole charge.
Exactly.
I think that if you can find those efficiencies and it's decided that consolidation is not the most efficient way to get those efficiencies, then, but you can still move forward, I think that should be something that should be explored. I don't think that we should narrow our focus that much. I am open to being swayed otherwise, however.
I would just go back to the communication that was originally presented, which was specific on wanting to come to the table to talk about, and these were not my words, potential merger consolidation. And the first communication came from one department and then the other, to the other department.
Well, that's why I'm here, because the letter said, well, first of all, the chief asked, but the letter from Willington 1 to our department was, I believe, to consolidate, to look into consolidation.
Yeah.
I've got some historical, like a lot of you guys, been around for a while. We've been going around and around and around for years. We actually communicate the best now that we ever have. We operate the best now that we ever have. As far as, that's my opinion. We're doing pretty well from a long, perspective. You can always improve, but to me, the goal should be either we're going to do it or we're not. We're going to merge or we're not. We're not doing bad as it is. It can always be better. But if we're not here to put our best foot forward and try to get this thing together, these two departments together once and for all, I think we're just wasting our time. I think we're just wasting our time. We need to jump in, do it, set a date, a goal. Let's consolidate by this date. All due respect to you, Mr. Chairman, I just been talking about this and doing this for
I agree
a long time. And I just don't want to waste any more time by just spinning our wheels and talk blah, blah, politically. Let's do these couple of nice window dressing things to make everybody happy. Budgeting, CIP, we're together better than we ever have been. But I think we just got to move forward and plunge in. We're all doing the same thing, one vision for the town. Let's do it. What form that takes, for me, that's why we're here. I'm not saying I have any preset conception about that, but let's talk about that. Let's talk about putting things together, making it so it's one voice that the town has to hear from. One voice for fire and EMS service for the town. So there's no more of this, well, they want this, they want, it actually works against us, and we know that because we're competing.
I agree, Tom, and I was encouraged that this wasn't something that came from any board or commission. It came from the leadership of the two departments. to my office. So it didn't start with someone saying, you have to, and here's what you have to do. That this seemed to be led by these departments that communicated with each other, included my office in that. So while I agree, out of that conversation, Peter, can be talk of some of the things you're thinking of, but I saw as the main charge something specific around merger or consolidation. Again, that was the language of the departments as they communicated with each other to get us to this point.
And I think that's where we need to be, as Mr. Smith alluded to, that we do work better now than we ever have. I think communication between the three departments it can always be better, but it is better than it was. But we need to, it's time. We need to, nobody wants to sit here and waste our time, waste their time. Another meeting is something that's not going to go anywhere. I think from our end, we want to take a serious look at this and move forward. And that's why we're here at the table.
Tom, thank you for opening the door. So, like Tom, I'm not going to sit here and echo everything that you said. I did, write down a few things and prepared, a general statement of what I think we should do, which I'll read into the record. But I'm sure everyone has their thoughts, but we've been at this a long time. This started, 93 was the first study that was actually commissioned.
Yep.
And the recommendation of that study is very crystal clear, that we paid 20 grand for it in 93?
I don't think it was quite that much.
And then we had another study done more recently, it was what, 96? No, how many years was I?
No, there were 3 of them.
The Harley Field one was the
Yeah,
second one.
and then there was actually a rather interesting study done, which was a survey that was conducted by both departments internally, which indicated a certain direction too. So we've been at this a while, and I guess, for the record, I guess I'd like to, if you'll humor me, I'll put this in. The subject of a merger, consolidation, whatever adjective you choose to use, is not a new concept to either fire department or the town. Over the years, we've discussed and implemented numerous small steps in an attempt to work together more efficiently, all while maintaining a clear and distinct separation of entities. Of all the efforts put forth, the only successful remaining attempt at working together is a simple fact we respond to calls together. But is it effective, and can it be better? All other facets of running the fire department remain separate. Administratively, financially, and operationally, we remain separate, and in some cases, worlds apart in our methodologies and loyalties in providing the most efficient emergency service for the taxpayers and paid for by the taxpayers. It is documented over the years I've maintained for many years that maybe we can do better and the townspeople deserve better. The question needs to be asked: does the town deserve better than what we are providing? Can it be done more efficiently and be more cost effective? Keep in mind there's equal culpability between both departments concerning the status that we find ourselves currently in. It will do no good whatsoever to simply sit here and place blame or attempt to impress each other with our opinions. Every person has a right to have his or her opinion. It must be understood that opinions not based on any evidence of fact should not be given any reasonable weight whatsoever. We need to deal with facts. In some cases, uncomfortable and embarrassing facts need to be brought to light. It is incumbent upon everyone at the table that we not get mired down in opinions, personal feelings towards one another, and what may be a general distaste and distrust for each other. We need to drill down into facts and perform an honest evaluation of what is best for the people in this town. The ones that pay their bills, the ones that allow us to exist, and more importantly, trust us with their lives and their property. The townspeople deserve that and no less. It's my sincere hope that through an open dialogue, tackling these factual issues are discussed and honest evaluation of the current state of affairs in the two organizations will actually occur. From a personal perspective, and I mean no disrespect to anybody in this room, I will not be part of a group that will not study all the issues objectively. And I know there's others in this room on both sides that will not stand for it either. We have an opportunity to come together to really discuss what is best for the town, and any approach that does not put the town first will result in a seriously fractured process. What is best for each member and what is best for the department is secondary to what is best for the people that pay approximately $700,000 a year for emergency services in this town. Give them an honest review with solid fact-based recommendations moving forward. We owe it to them.
I like you, Tyler, I just want to say.
That's my take, Pete, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I thank you for your take, and I'm glad you read that, and I don't think I'm in disagreement with you.
Having been through all of these evolutions too, since 1982, I guess, and all the history and all that, I think there's a lot of really good sentiment in what Tyler just said. The only thing I would add, which hopefully goes along with it, isn't a counter to it, is that while I agree the townspeople are the first priority, I think my feelings put just a little more thought and emphasis also on the people in our departments who perform the service, because a great deal of the people performing the services in both departments, well, all of them in our department are volunteer, and a great deal in Willington one are volunteer, and even the career people and the part-time paid people are our most valuable resource. So while the town is definitely the first priority in providing the right service to the town is the first priority, I personally want to emphasize a little stronger on the value of the resources that are providing that service. And I don't mean that to counter Tyler's comments, I just want to sort of emphasize where I think that's valuable to the process. Not that should keep us from serving the townspeople, but as an added thought. So I think, Mr. Chairman, charge and goals are obviously two different things,
Okay.
right? I mean, the charge is the sort of overall, but we may continue to add goals as we learn what we're learning.
Goals towards
Right.
checkpoints towards a final goal.
I think our charge my feeling is our charge maybe should be something close to what the earlier charge was that Tyler read before. Maybe a few less words, a little simpler, but essentially, I see our job as to study and recommend options for providing an efficient service, including the potential of consolidation. That goes to the first.
The original chart.
It's in italics in the top.
Has anybody, or has everybody seen the last, at least the most recent study that was done?
It's been a while.
I've read all three of them
Yeah.
times over the years, but I haven't recently.
Hartley's? What was the last one that was done?
Well,
That was like-
yeah, I think the one in between was the,
Castle Bowes?
Oh, which
Castle-
well, that was the
On the
facility
buildings or on
study.
the buildings or on Bergen? It's Hartley Field.
So there were 3 operational studies plus the facility
Plus the
study,
facilities, okay.
which was separate. And I think, right, Hartley Field was the last one. The one before that was the
You're from New Hampshire.
group from New Hampshire, right?
Cassie's house.
And then previous to that was that early one. I don't even remember who did that one.
Municipal Resources in 93,
Yeah, municipal resources.
and then there was Hartley's. And there was a committee, there's not a date on this, so Stuart, because you're good with this stuff. There was the following report is a compilation of information gathered by the Committee to Study Consolidation between both departments.
That does sound a
No,
little
which-
familiar.
Was that post-Hartley?
Which was the one,
This is back,
Tom, you were on one where we almost had the fire commission, right? Which,
There was one like 4 years ago, wasn't
No,
there?
this
That was way back.
this
No,
was
Just tell you this
yeah,
already.
it was quite a few years ago.
The fire commission was previous to the last
So it was probably
efficiency
the
committee.
middle.
The fire commission was 2005-ish.
this
Okay.
one between the two departments had to be just prior to the commission vote. Because that was an option in this, was the voters could elect a board of fire commissioners.
And that failed at the poll.
Yeah,
Right.
but the interesting thing is, I mean, from a historical perspective, all these are very good reading. But the one, the neat thing about this one was that it was a committee of both organizations that brought in other departments that have merged. So at the time, we talked to Don Maguda, Mike Gergler, Bobby Reese, Steve Woffman. We brought these guys in and to try to gain some insight as to their experiences during the merger. And then there was a poll that was sent out to every member of each organization, and those all the responses were tabulated and put into a report. And there were 12, 14, 15 questions, and then there was a summation. So while you certainly can take, you know, 2 studies that we paid money for from outside agencies that come in and tell you kind of what you should do, you know, I always kind of personally thought that the one that was done internally between the 2 organizations anonymously was always the one that kind of told the story, you know. So.
If you're really leading the charge on this discussion, and by you, I mean the collective you, the 2 departments, that's the place for you to start. You can take their recommendations, but you have to know where the interest lies.
Yeah, this one really, I guess that for lack of a better term, to me personally, this was kind of the litmus test. And, you know, in the end, the last paragraph is the committee compiled the information leading up to the membership of both departments to draw no conclusions. The chiefs, past and present of the departments met with and applauded our efforts so far and urged us to continue to be focused on the right track. What's the next step? It's up to the membership. We then went to a formal vote at each fire department. Willington 1 voted unanimously to merge, and I think yours was defeated. I don't know what the count was, but it was defeated and then it stopped.
So
When?
can,
Go ahead.
I'm
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, go.
That's another good point, having said what I said earlier. Whatever we do has to be, really have to be sold to the departments, assuming that's the direction that we go in, it's gonna have to be voted on at our individual departments. That is something to keep in our minds, that it has to, whatever we do here really needs to be embraced if it's gonna fly. We can't just go through the motions and come up with, and then we have to go back and sell it.
Right. That's why the
And
members
believe
of
it.
this department were asked specifically to be made up of those who can make
Right.
the decisions. That your membership already has put their faith and trust in you in leading the department. So the leadership of the departments buying into one end result is what will help them know that you already have done the hard work to get to the best result. So that's why we asked specifically for either particular members, leaders, chiefs, presidents, because you already have those responsibilities. They trust in you already. And now it's to do the work together so that you can go back to them.
The other opposite side of that spectrum, Tom, is that let's, you know, for discussion's sake, let's say that the committee, you know, meets diligently, we come to some conclusions, you know what, this is probably the best thing, we should merge. The departments go and respectively vote, and, you know, if they vote yes, then we move forward. The other part of it is that during this entire process, and if a proper evaluation is done and the end result is extremely telling, whether the 2 departments say yay or nay, the town, the Board of Selectmen, the Board of Finance could say, listen, this is rather decisive here. This is a no-brainer. You're going to do it. You know, and I say that tongue in cheek, but you know, I'm always cognizant of the fact in the back of my mind that both fire departments are providing service only because of a contractual agreement between the town. The town can sever either agreement with proper notice at any time. So there's a nice way that it can be done, but there's also a way where the people that control the purse strings can say, we don't really care what you guys think.
Stafford Springs.
Your information, your work shows that it's the most beneficial thing for the taxpayers. You're going to do it. Here's a date, get it done. So that can happen as well. You know, and you're right. The Stafford thing is a prime example. You know.
Let me ask you a question. Could we embrace are we at a point, would you be comfortable in that? I have to ask everybody, with setting up a goal, 4 years, like, a loose goal, something to look for in the future as far as consolidating. No, and when I say consolidation, I mean,
The form that consolidation takes can be
Takes.
many,
It doesn't-
many faceted.
yes.
To
There's
execute
many
the
different
results
ways
of
that you
this.
can do that, that you can put things together.
I think
and
4 years is too
inform.
long.
Well,
I agree with
So I
that.
think whatever we come to, I think
3 years, 2 years?
I think 2 years in my mind is reasonable. I think a year's too fast because you just can't,
Yeah.
do all the moving pieces. But I think somewhere in that year to 2 years, I mean, if we can't come to some reasonable agreements, there's a lot of smart people in this room.
I think we need to have the buy-in. I think we need to have the buy-in from the membership within a year. They're going to approve yes or no within this first year. And the second year is lining out,
Execution.
is the execution of it. I think if we try to wait 2 years from now to say, all right, we're gonna give it to our membership and let's vote on it.
We will have all lost steam by then.
Absolutely. I think,
And that can be a goal. Does that have to be
absolutely. I think
set?
the
that's your
execution
goal.
of it,
Right.
the execution of it is going to be the harder part.
Yes.
That, both departments need to have the trust and faith in the people that they've put here to be able to make the execution, but they need to decide it at some point.
I think the town has to have some skin in the game. I think that they have to have some type of,
Well, he's right there.
some type of authoritative power.
Right, I understand what you're saying
You know
there.
what I mean?
You can do it on the carrot, or you can do it on the stick. And, right? And I think some combination is probably the best way here. The problem is if you use the nuclear option, say, you're done, then you can have a lot of,
Well, yeah, and I guess you have the deep down hope that reasonable people
Can be
come
reasonable.
to reasonable conclusions to effectuate reasonable change.
And
I'm not quite there.
and I think the best way for you to get buy-in from your members is for them to know that this is what you wanted. Not necessarily what the town said you had to do, right? That gives it, to me, draws a very different conclusion as
You go
to
with
how to
the
get there.
facts.
So if you're either gonna get to a point where you say, yes, we're willing to now look at the very minute steps to get us to consolidation date. First, you gotta get yourself to, are we willing to consolidate? And then you can work on that and buy in. If it comes from the town, I'm not sure you get the same buy-in from your membership. And, listen, we've been looking at these studies since 1993, and no
Right.
year
And like
in
you
town
said,
since
Tyler, also,
1993 is
you're already-
willing to do that.
Tyler already said that, we're gonna reach a point where the town may say, okay, there's an obvious choice here.
Yeah.
We have to make it.
Right.
And that's when the town can step in or not. I don't think we need to get them involved and.
That was my point. My point was
At some point, they may.
just what you did, that you come to the end of this and we all kind of know where it's heading. When the people that hold the purse strings look at it, or the people, the board of selectmen say, so?
Right.
Tyler, but
And I think no one to this
Or
point
they,
has been
or they
willing
say,
to
no,
do
you're
that.
stupid and we're not doing
Yeah,
it.
right.
I think,
You know?
I think from
It
my
costs us a lot of
perspective, the town supports you in the talk of a merger and a consolidation, if that's the direction these two independent corporations look to go to. I think by having us here at the table and having this conversation, you see that the leaders of this town support this communication.
So,
If you look at these studies, there's not a lot of, in the current setup, reasons for us financially not to move in that direction.
so I've been sketching together an idea for a charge. What I have right now is to study and recommend within 14 months, I'll come back to that in a minute, why 14 months. To study and recommend within 14 months options for providing efficient emergency services, including consolidation of the departments. That's the charge, I'm thinking, and the reason for the 14 months is to get us just out of summer next year, because summer gets to be a difficult time sometimes for meetings. It also means that we would have recommendations back before the start of budget season. So if there are recommendations coming at the end of this 14 months, that would then put us into the implementation period. There would be time for those things that might affect budget season and all that stuff to get applied into the town's budget process and all that. Does that at least make some sense?
Can you read it again? You mind?
To study and recommend within 14 months options for providing efficient emergency services, including consolidation of the departments. Plain and simple.
All right, let's do it this way. You want to present that in the form of a motion, we can get a second, discuss it,
Get a
see what we need for changes, and see if that way we can move this forward.
I move that the charge of the committee be to study and recommend within 14 months options for providing efficient emergency services, including consolidation of the departments.
I'll second it for discussion.
All right. Anybody have anything to add?
I still think the 14 months just to get to the decision that this is where we should be going, maybe too long. I mean, we're going to be spinning our wheels.
Well, that's why I said and recommend. So not only be the decision of this is where we're going, but this is some of what needs to happen over this next year. You know what I'm saying? Like I originally started with 1 year, but that would put us in August, which might be a rough time of year to finish up because there may be some real nuts and bolts at the end that would need to be finished up. Because we can't predict right now, although I think a lot of us who've been around for a while know a lot of what we're going to come up with, but we can't predict right now what these next few months is going to come up with. Right, so we need time to pull it together, and a lot of that is going to be what the group comes up as options and then recommends. We'll have to also recommend how to do it. That was my thought process.
Yes, it was seconded.
That's our discussion.
Yeah.
Yes, we're discussing.
I guess I'm hung up on studying efficiencies. We've studied efficiencies since '93. You have studies that studied efficiencies. We've studied efficiencies. We've met over the years regarding efficiencies. If you want, I guess
You want the ultimate efficiency.
my personal compromise would be to go into this studying whether we should combine into one organization. And if it leads down the path that perhaps we shouldn't for whatever reason, then you start studying efficiencies. Well, why study the efficiencies if the end result potentially could be you'd be one organization?
Because that's how you justify it. There are things, we've all complained, you, me both, and other people in this room and not in this room have complained that all of those studies in the past were missing certain things. Plus, they have a lot of age on them. So I don't think we need to repeat all that work, but we also need to, like, for example, when the discussion started for Willington Hill about buying 25 Old Farms Road, one of the things that was asked from groups in the town that the department was working with was, well, how do we know this is even a good place for a fire station? Right? So maybe one of the things we do study to help justify whatever our results are to the committee and to our departments and to the town is what are the best places for fire stations to be? Or what is our response pattern? What's our census? Where are we going with calls right now? You know, are we, that's a question we're getting a lot, so maybe that's something we should do, and that requires that we study that right now. We have to look at current information for that, not the study from 1993, because that won't be accurate. That's what I'm thinking, is there's some study involved here.
Yeah, I guess respectfully, I think we need to deal with the big white elephant in the room and look at whether it's feasible for us to merge our organizations. And we can, again, I've been down the efficiency road for 24 years. We can identify them all day long. It's implementing them and having people in place that are going to provide the longevity of those efficiencies, and it's not going to, in my opinion.
Yes, but we
there's no
won't get
longevity
people to
the
buy
site.
in until we show why. And I don't think we're doing a complete job for the taxpayers. When the taxpayers are saying, well, is the fire station on Old Farms Road in the right place? Well, sure it is. Of course it is, because it's already here. That's not an answer.
No, yeah, I'm trying, Mike, I'm trying to understand your parallel with that. I'm not sure.
Tyler, with respect to your 25 years, I got 25 minutes of this kind of thing, so I'm coming at it differently than you are. I think that unless you sell the efficiency of the change, you're not going to get the change. That's why we need to study the efficiencies. What are we gaining by this, not how are we doing it? You see what we have to sell the game as well as
Along with the
as the process.
efficiencies of the change comes the structure of the change and the operation of the change.
Mhm.
It all should be discussed before, the change.
I think the tasks or goals will get to what you're working on, Tyler. I think the tasks and goals can start pointing us in those directions, like pointing us towards working with the memberships of the departments on what we're going to do, what's the buy-in, how we do it. I think we get to all of that through the goals. I just think that there's got to be a certain amount of study to back up why we're setting these targets or why we think we should do a certain thing.
Yeah, I'll yield to the group. I mean, has anyone here seen the movie Groundhog Day?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes, over and over.
yeah,
That's what
yeah.
That's what it feels like to me.
See, I'm on the first day. You're on the 97th day.
What you have, some of us are just sick and tired of talking about the
Yeah.
efficiencies. What you have
Maybe
here
that's it.
is just.
I am as well.
Yeah,
Right.
That let's sharpen the pencil and start working on the issue of consolidation. Either go through the bylaws, start a set of bylaws, just one thought, and have an implementation date, the name, the whole structure that we both operate on. Work on bylaws. And that sets the frame for
That's a
everything.
great goal.
And then you can talk about, as you hit each thing, you start talking about all these things that you're talking about, the efficient, but I get what you do. It's tough, and I understand, and I'm like Tyler, you just, after talk for so long, it just gets old. That's all.
But there are reasons why the talk didn't go anywhere.
Sure, Chief.
There are reasons why they talk, and then end up with nothing, then we talk, and it ends up with nothing. There's reasons for that.
But you came up with efficiencies out of those
Committee after
discussions.
committee after committee, and it's like we said, we've all sat here for numerous of these things.
Yeah, so we
And
met
reasons
in,
why
It's
they,
it's why you respond
come
to
fruition.
all calls
It's
all
not
as
just
one. You
because
already
somebody-
made some efficiencies. You've
Yeah,
looked
put
at
the
those
footnote, yeah.
in depth. This time, I thought you were both hoping to answer the question,
Right.
can we and are we willing to consolidate?
Right.
And then out of the answer yes or no from that, obviously just the yes, becomes how. And then you can let us know how that is more efficient for the town once you have merged. You're gonna have that talk in the middle.
Yeah, this is all
but
going on at the same time.
But the big question is the elephant in the room, can we and are we willing to really look at merging and consolidating? I think.
Yes.
Madam First, the problem, and all due respect, I understand what everybody's saying, I really do. What happens without the merge is you have these well-meaning policy, things that you want to change and do, they fade. A couple of years, and I could be missing, I'm not one of the high officers, so I could be missing
You
something
think like you and I
before.
do, right?
Yes, well, the well-meaning things fade. A few years ago, we started going we didn't used to go to all the calls in town, that was big, that was huge. We started to, that was one real driving motivation to see us get together.
And that's been almost 20 years now.
Budgeting, CIP, all that stuff, and that's better, it's all better. The talking, the training is better, but what ends up happening because you're not under one structure is that stuff fades a little bit. As time, you start off really good, and then things fade because it just does. It just does. Without being together. I mean, I don't think it's all peachy. I don't think consolidation, this issue is all gonna be great and
Absolutely
everything's.
not. I agree with you. I'd like to know, sitting here while we're doing this, what was the holdups? What do we need to figure out to make this work? What were those things that just wouldn't let people go with it?
Well, I think the reason that and those of you who've been around for a while, correct me if my memory's wrong on this, but the reason the town has never pushed any meaningful change after all of these studies was
I don't
that.
mean the town.
Well, hang on, but it'll answer your question. Is that none of the studies brought out a real smoking gun. None of the studies said, this is how you can really save a ton of money. They made some good recommendations, some studies versus others said different
Absolutely.
things. Some said the same things over again, but a couple of the times when the studies were commissioned was because the town was sure that it was an incredibly financially inefficient way of doing things. When it came back that it wasn't a huge financial impact, that satisfied the need or took away the desire or whatever. So the town stopped pushing it, which made it easier for the departments or a department to not have to pursue it any further. And then there were, you know, as was touched on at the beginning here, there is history between the departments, you know, so then antagonism and stuff like that, and we've gone in waves of working together better and worse. And, you know, some people were saying, well, you know, this is the pride in our organization. That certainly happened in Willington Hill. We said, this is the pride of our organization. We want to maintain, you know, we've got a great core. We've got 30-some volunteers. We don't want to mess with what works. You know, and so you know, call it fear of change, call it desire to maintain the thing that's working right, or whatever you want to call it. You can put 100 names on it. But I think that was a lot of the reason, like, we already, you know, we've got this thing working, it works. Let's not mess with it. Those are some of the things I've experienced.
I mean, not to touch too much on history, but the post-Hartley field study, when we got together for the departments to ultimately vote on yes or no for consolidation, your chief at the time said, oh yeah, I'm all for it, I'm all for it. And when it came time to the Willington Hill meeting, which I was at, he stood up in front and said, this will destroy fire service for the town of Willington, and I encourage you to vote no.
Right.
But days earlier, he was at this type of committee saying, I'm all for it. When your chief stands up in front of you and says, don't vote for this, what's going to happen? I'd like to jump back to a comment Pete made about working together on CIP and budgets. We don't.
Can I remind you have a motion on
Oh,
before I,
okay. But you talk about doing things together. CIP hasn't been done together in years, and I wouldn't say it's our fault, so to speak. We brought it to CIP as long before I was on the committee. And one year we did it together, we sat down, and we did it blind. We didn't say
I think
which,
this might be on the topic, though.
yeah, which is what department was submitting the request. And the first thing out of CIP, we want to know what department submitted these requests. Which kind of defeated the whole purpose of making a
Right.
CIP plan together.
Yes, I remember the frustration with that, because I was involved with
And
that.
since then, we haven't done a CIP plan together. We don't do budgets
They
together.
get submitted typically together, and typically we have an idea of what's going where and stuff.
But there's no uniform
Right.
goal between the two departments to try to shuffle things into the proper order. But that got kind of shut down from the administration that we presented these to.
Yes, right. So the humans will always ruin all of us, right? I mean, that's clear.
You know,
So we have to try to remember that.
And a big part of this, and I've said it to everybody here, is the risk involved in this, not just the benefit of, oh, okay, well, one fire department, we're getting along great, and it's efficient, and this and that, the risk of a Mansfield, or the risk of a Tyler, or the risk of, you know, a paid department joining together with a volunteer department, and that it ends up costing the town a lot more money than it's costing now. And you lose the volunteers. So, I mean, that's a big part of why everybody sees that and says, you know, okay, we've reached a point, but you know, there's a huge risk that potentially could cost the town millions, as opposed to what they're paying now. You don't agree, Tyler?
In my mind, I think that's why we do a good job of studying and recommending. We
That's-
find the right way to do it.
That is almost the big issue.
Yeah.
Would you guys,
But if you look at history, you look at agencies that have been around us, that have merged. I mean, you know, the town of Vernon, you know, were two very large organizations that were Rockville.
But they're not merging paid and,
They're combined, I mean.
they're not merging paid and volunteer.
what-
They merged two volunteer departments. Big difference.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to digress here, but what?
It's not digressing,
What
it's
are you
gotta
there,
be talked about.
what are you there for
It's
then?
not-
If you don't want to go to a call because there's paid people involved, what are you really there for?
It's
Is
not,
that such a
Tom,
problem?
I can't explain it. I
That's the
can't
nut-
explain the
that's the
paid
nut to
guy
crack.
syndrome. I
That's the
can't
nut to
explain
crack.
why it happens, but it happens.
Again, it goes back to my statement, it's an opinion, I mean, you know.
It's not an opinion, it's a fact.
So
It's numbers.
your concern is that potentially, you've had information that if we merge, that all the volunteers will quit?
No, and it's not that extreme. But look at what's happened. Look what happens with combination departments. They lose their volunteers, for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, it's no secret, there's the thing in the industry
We
called
can beat
paid
around it.
syndrome,
You
right?
waive the
So that's
volunteer
the,
we shouldn't beat around anything. No,
I know, that's why I put it out there. I mean, I think that's a big concern for me as a volunteer chief, that you know, if that's the way the town wants to go, the potential risk in this group is fine. I feel that it'd be better to have one department in this town if we could figure that out. Eliminate that risk, which is gonna be virtually impossible in my opinion.
That's
So
what
we
you-
look at
that's
what
what we-
other
That's what we need to
departments
work
have
on,
done.
what he's talking about. You
Right.
heard it from the man.
Just bite it.
Hi.
Like I said, I
Next
can't
meeting,
bring,
swap seats.
I can bring everything back to my department. And again, I've said this at my department, I've said it to all you guys, you know, that's my biggest concern.
But then if you sit here and have the conversation, how you can understand why that may not be a reality and how
then
that
how
can be
you mitigate
avoided,
that.
then you take that back instead
Exactly.
of just taking back try to find the
Absolutely,
positive way and how
absolutely.
you have
There's a
to,
way.
that's what you take back.
There's a way.
There's a counterpoint to every point, so if there's a concern or a point being made that the fact that there's paid staff involved is possibly a liability or a roadblock to a complete merger. There's another counterpoint to that could be argued that having, when you say paid staff, well, let's put it on the table, the two people that happen to be working there can actually prove as a benefit versus a negative.
Absolutely, right,
Yes.
so we have to put that
We're not
together.
saying, we're not saying it's
You know,
not.
and Tom, you've heard me say this too, but it's, you know, for every person or group that says, oh my God, they're bringing paid guys, go ride the ambulance. Why are you doing that? Yeah, right, that's why you have paid guys, that's the problem.
But that's
You
the
know,
problem that I'm
if everyone
talking
wants to
about.
ride the ambulance, you need paid guys.
Right,
You're both correct,
Right, I agree.
but we gotta figure it out.
Yeah.
We gotta figure out
And
a
when
way
you-
a way to make it
When you've
work.
done that
for
here,
us.
that's what you're taking back to your department.
I think that's why it's gonna take 14.
I look at it as a positive.
Absolutely.
Versus-
Well, I mean, it is, Tyler, to have paid staff is a positive, I agree with you, but to combine the two is very dangerous.
All right, let me break in here for just a minute. I think what we're doing is we're working towards the goal that was brought up as the motion rather than discussing
Yeah, what was the
whether that should be changed. So if.
Would you like me to reread the
If you
motion?
could reread the motion,
We're
that
getting,
would
we're
be
getting
fine.
somewhere though.
We are getting someplace, but
Yeah, I
what we
saw.
want to do is we want to make sure we're getting to this, we decide that the place we're getting to is the place we want to be working towards.
So my motion was for the charge of this group to be to study and recommend within 14 months options for providing efficient emergency services, including consolidation of the departments.
And the consolidation can be an efficiency, and then we had a second. All right, is there any changes to his wording that we want here? Not how we get there, but changes to his wording. All in favor? Aye.
I don't know if you can say
I can't vote.
You vote.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think we all opposed.
Nay.
What, never mind. Can you be accommodated? No.
I think you're just spinning, again, I think you're spinning wheels looking.
Yeah.
Pete has a absolutely valid opinion, Mike, made a couple comments. I just don't want to get mired down in talking about efficiencies that have been tried over the last 25 years.
You know.
I agree with you, Tyler, that the efficiencies are a part of things that will come along with it. It's more of a plan that, if we can put something together that will work as a plan, that's kind of the goal that we should shoot for. And if it works and it's past both departments, then good.
And I see,
Right,
even in 14
efficiencies.
months, you're either moving forward, talking about the efficiencies of 2 individual departments or efficiencies of 1 consolidated department.
But again, these
So,
plans have to
I think
be.
that's what
Consolidate.
you look at that after, not as a result.
And
The
plans have
choices
to
you're
be
making in how you consolidate could be based on efficiencies as well. So that's why I don't object to that language.
I feel like the efficiencies help us justify what we make for recommendations. That's what I'm hoping.
I see the efficiencies driving the consolidation rather than the consolidation driving the efficiencies. But that's just the way I see it, and I'm like I said, I'm now an hour into this. All right, so now we have a charge, we have a goal of 14 months, we're going to be reporting occasionally, or monthly, I guess, to the Board of Selectmen. Is that what we decided, monthly or bi-weekly?
I think the suggestion was that you could go.
I could go? The suggestion was I can go,
Or communicate in some way where
Yeah.
you're at.
Right,
I
right.
mean, my suggestion would be you set a clear charge, and that maybe you have a first goal. That 14 months is not your first goal.
Right.
That is your,
No, that's
that is your end result, and that, so that when you're preparing for your first meeting, you know what it is you're working towards. So if there's documentation that you need, if there's something you need from the town in order to look at this, that you know when you come back here on the next Wednesday meeting, if there's something that you need, you have it before you start and you know what you're looking for. So what is that?
I'll tell you right now, Mr. Chairman, address this question first, the paid volunteer. How do we figure this out? How do we make it happen that's acceptable for, because if you don't get by this, it isn't gonna happen.
I think that that's probably.
Think about it,
Well,
figure it out, we
Yeah,
gotta figure it
I
out.
agree. I think it's a long, detailed discussion on that one topic.
Yeah,
That almost, I mean.
it's the biggest, right?
If that's the hurdle that's keeping things from moving on and the
Let's get
biggest
started on it
concern
early.
in a department, let's put it
Yeah,
out.
I mean, I gotta tell you, one of the things that, and some of you guys have probably been through these, but, you ever been through a SWOT analysis before?
Yeah.
That's what this is begging.
This is all management.
This was
is
begging.
management right
It's
here.
begging for us to sit somewhere on a board, a huge whiteboard, and you write strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and you just start writing these things out. And we did one of these many years ago at the fire department, and you sit there, and everyone sat back and you looked at this thing and went, holy crap, there's our roadmap. If everybody sits in that room and is honest, it's amazing at what you can glean from doing one of these exercises. And,
Do we have rooms with whiteboards available? If not, maybe we could get
Well, but maybe
somebody.
we could simply get someone could use their computer?
that actually might
We
be
could
one
get
of
the
the,
easel
might be
paper.
one of the first things that we
Easel
do.
paper.
Right, we can
That's
get
on
it,
paper.
right,
That
put it
works
right
great.
up on the wall, we can get your projector, we can get your screen, you tell me what resource we can provide you with to make the
Could
work
we
you need
get
to
a
do.
couple
easier.
pads of that easel paper that
Yeah,
has the
could you
sticky
just-
on it, so you can peel off and stick it on the wall, and we just draw it with dry erase markers?
And
Yeah.
that, not that it would provide a very clear roadmap, but that would get all of the things like this. And a very, very quick sort of, we went through this, what year was that? 2000?
This was probably 9 years ago.
So anyway, you have strengths, weaknesses, opportunities. So, I said, I was a facilitator, so give us a strength. Oh, the paid staff. So it's a strength. So we ended up getting down, we went through, it was a whole bunch, you get to weaknesses. Paid staff.
Very often.
What? So somebody in that room felt that us having paid staff was actually a weakness. You got down to threats, paid staff. So you look at these things, you get different people in the room, but to somebody it was a strength that we had the staff, to somebody it was a weakness, and to somebody else it was a threat, to your point. And you start talking through that and figuring out how do you navigate that river, if you will. So that thing might really do us a world of good from the get-go, as a top-side review of where we all sit, where we think we sit, and what our, they're just pretty neat, and they work.
Take your biggest problems and just, then if you solve that one, go to the next, identify the next one.
And that's what you do. So you summarize this thing in a report. It says what it provides you really is an agenda for future meetings, is what it can do.
Yeah.
That's really what it does.
Yeah.
Well, and it starts inspiring tasks.
Yep.
And that's really what you need to do. You need to start figuring out the tasks for how you work those problems out.
Yep.
And one of the tasks might be a new poll of the departments before this, and then do it again in 6 months and see what we've learned in 6 months by working on this.
Yep.
I like that idea.
But I agree with you, Tom. I agree with what you said. That's a big issue with some people. Others, it ain't. But to some people, it is. So let's navigate that and figure it out.
So if one of you just send a communication of what it is you need, and we'll see if we can make sure you have everything you need.
You guys want me to send Ron an email as to what we need?
Yes, please.
So So, Mr. Chairman, you want to set us a goal for next meeting? What we should be ready for next meeting?
I think for the next meeting, we should work on one of these SWOT analyses and so start thinking about those topics. I think as we bring those topics up, it'll also generate new topics. We can start working off of that.
And next
Start
Wednesday-
thinking of a goal of what you think the consolidation might look like. I mean, if you don't have a vision that you're working towards, then if you don't have a roadmap where you're going, it's awfully hard to tell when you've gotten there. So,
Next Wednesday is the fourth Wednesday of the month. Either you begin then or go till, then you're looking at September 11th. Just so that you can set when your next meeting
let's
is.
do it while the iron is hot and go for the fourth Wednesday, which is next
Next
Wednesday. you
Wednesday,
said?
the 28th. Okay.
28th?
And again, there are 2 alternates on each, so that's the reason, because we knew that there could be problems.
I think we need a vice chair as well, because I may not be able to make every meeting on every Wednesday for the next 14 months. Just a chance that might not occur. I'm not looking at you, I'm looking at Bobby on the side of my eye.
As a member ex officio, can I fill that role? So that it's a neutral,
Sure.
non-member party?
I have no problem with
I
that.
think when,
That's fine.
part of the reason you were nominated, it seemed unanimous, it was happening whether you would come in or not, was that it was not the departments, it was outside.
Right,
Okay.
very good.
In the event we are both out, because
What else do you guys
Wednesday,
want for next week?
I think if we're coming in with what we think the major hot topics are, and we're also thinking about what the structure would look like of those 2 things he said, I think that's a lot for the next meeting.
No, I meant like, what are we gonna?
Pads of paper, the big,
Sorry.
And you don't have to decide tonight, if you want to communicate with each other, get back to us.
I think we
won't
need
put you under the gun
those
right now.
easel pads, the peel off ones, so you can
The
stick them,
sticky-
go around and stick them on the wall,
yes.
and access to some dry erase markers.
One of the things that is crucial to a SWOT analysis is a a facilitator that has no skin in the game. Not that we're adversaries necessarily, but somebody that doesn't really care one way or the other.
Well, we start trying to add another person and we may complicate the schedule.
What's their role?
Their role is to solicit input and documentation and to keep the flow going.
Only for the purpose of the SWOT analysis.
Only for SWOT analysis, nothing
It's not like a
else.
permanent member.
Yeah, but isn't that why we have him, Chairman? You can do that.
Sure, yeah,
Sure.
sure.
Yeah, I mean, you take the SWOT guidelines and stand up there and he can write. He can ask questions and write.
Yeah, I mean,
You don't need spelling.
it's,
Well, we can take turns writing, Peter, if your arm
I
gets
can
sore.
write it before I have.
Doing it with the smart board, you can capture it.
So
That'd be awesome.
I gotta tell you,
Can we-
when the Board of Ed years ago began this, looking at facilities and what to do about declining enrollment, we did just that, only we didn't end up using the smart board like we assumed that we would. We went old school and we ended up with Post-its all over the smart board because it was just easier. Everyone took a pad and wrote their things down, and then we took all of those out and started, we narrowed it down from 50 different suggestions. Sometimes the old school method was a little bit more free-flowing for people.
yeah, I mean, it's probably important that we capture it though, and
So
save it
we can,
somehow, I would think.
Yeah, so sticky notes.
Yeah, I mean, if
Well,
you-
the big ones are giant sticky notes. I have like 5 years of them from UConn. We kept every year of them.
I don't know
I
if
mean,
this
even
will-
the paper you can keep and then we can,
I don't know if this will
you
matter, but is there a facility or a room, I don't know all the rooms in town, that we could take over so that we could do things like this?
That you
with
could
sticky
keep it?
notes and things on it?
I would love to say yes, but no.
There's
but we
no
really
place in the
don't have a
library or
room.
the schools or
Maybe
anything
in one
like
of your
that.
new buildings?
I was just gonna say, 25 Old Farms.
There isn't a building here that isn't severely multi-purpose. There's-
It's open to the public as well, so
How
that's
big's the
one
living
of
room
them.
over there?
How big is what?
It's good size, I mean, it's.
I mean,
Main
there
room?
really is no
In the
room
house,
here,
on the
that there are people
Oh.
in and out
Oh,
of
the
all
house.
day.
They gonna
That
get
something could
the
go
living room in the
missing,
house.
something
tell
could
them they
be
can agree for
removed.
us being in there, that'd be perfect.
No, that's fine, but the only problem I have is,
Give us a hard time.
the only problem I have with that is I don't think it's sizable enough to accommodate the public. If we have.
Well, we could do those meetings here, right?
They're all supposed to be open to the public, it's my
And
understanding.
they are absolutely.
Like 2 people are gonna
So-
come.
That is correct. Look, my driver came with me tonight, otherwise it would probably just be me, if I didn't. Vehicle.
We can certainly try it there.
But wherever they
If you
are, they
want.
have to be, it will be noticed to the public that that's where they are. But if not the house, again, I don't know where you are with zoning and how you can use.
The church part.
As long as you guys,
Wall space and seat space.
yeah, as long as you guys have a green light with your,
You have a green light with
where
your
you are
building.
with zoning or
You're
permitting,
not
whatever.
doing anything with the
Like
church
you-
portion, yeah?
Be a good room. Throw some chairs and table in there and your business.
Yeah, it's fine, we'll do that.
There's enough pew seating for like 200 people. We have plenty of room.
QC.
Have you pulled those up yet?
We just talked about having a permanent place, so we can put stuff on the walls and leave them for next meeting and stuff, and do things like that, that we don't have to move everything in and
It
out.
will alleviate the where will your meeting be? From our standpoint, we can just say at wherever it is. Again, I'll just double check with zoning to make sure that we're not putting you in a bind by,
Creating a zoning violation.
correct, by holding a town meeting somewhere if you don't have everything you need yet. We don't,
Yeah, we're just-
neither side needs any
Our
part of
permits
that.
are up, I think the next meeting is September 3rd, is it?
Yeah.
For zoning?
So for our meeting before that, I'll just check with Mike to see what that would be like.
Mr. Chairman, for a strictly a historical perspective, is anybody interested in reviewing or possessing the past studies? I have them all electronically.
Yeah, maybe we email them. If
Yeah,
you,
because municipal learning resources, I have fields and I have the combined survey.
if you send it through the chair and then have the chair distribute it.
I would
Be
say
nice
you
for a
do
fresh
that,
one.
even if you don't need them, at least
I
everything
have
has
them
them
all
for
in
when you're
paper.
ready to discuss them.
Yeah, they're all
You have them when you're
PDFs.
ready.
Yeah, I have them all in paper, but it'd be much better electronic,
What
so.
is it, 3 PDFs?
Not one PDF.
One PDF? Send me the one PDF, you got my email
You
address
got
right
it.
here.
It's great.
And I will distribute it to the list.
Okey dokey.
Is there any other documentation we need to start preparing in terms of, remember the Hartley Field thing, we did a pin map of where the calls are, or is it premature to start working on something like
I
that?
think that's something we should end up doing at some point, but I'm not sure that needs to be. I don't,
If you get me the
I don't think we
calls,
need to bog
our
ourselves
staff
down
is
with
willing
too many
to do
things for
that.
night one.
So if
Right.
someone can get me all of the calls, a completely neutral party on staff has already said they would take care of doing that, so it's
What's
not me or you or you. and
Place them,
we'll
I
do
think Stuart can just run
We
it,
can-
he
yeah,
can
we
run
know
it and
the
place
CAD.
it on the map
that.
anyway.
And we have, this is what's called decision support software, we can make heat maps, and we can do all
Yeah,
kinds
I'm
of.
just saying, so Emily is great with the GIS and had offered to do that if we gave her a list of the calls.
Just gonna put it manually? That's nuts. We can spend about
Depends on how,
5 minutes.
what time period you look at.
Yeah,
10 years of call?
Absolutely.
We got 10,000.
This is one of
I
the
do not
things that
appreciate
are, the
it.
dispatch money that the taxpayers pay for dispatching services helps to buy this
That's right.
equipment.
That's right.
Okay, sounds good to me, I'm just telling you what she had offered
Okay.
months and months ago.
Yes, I heard that.
So what we're looking for, we're gonna meet in a week. We're gonna have, start an analysis, a SWOT analysis. We're gonna.
So location to be announced, right?
Yeah, if you-
analysis
yeah, I'll
as
just
soon
double
as we figure that out, and at 6:30, correct?
Yep. And just one question, or kind of a double part question, just for budgeting purposes on both of our ends. One, what's the price of the secretary and the videographer?
Okay, so this has nothing to do with.
Yep, no, we
So,
asked, yeah.
You asked?
Yep,
So that's on your end.
okay.
The recording secretary, again, I want to thank Eileen for doing this. She did this at the request of one or both departments, if you don't know.
Yeah, because.
There was no budget for recording secretary for your committee. In the past, Robin did it as part of her job, but as the selectmen were not seated specifically on this committee, there went Robin taking care of that as part of her daily job. So you guys have decided to work with Eileen. You can use the dollar amount that the town uses for recording secretary or determine your own.
Eileen went well hazard.
So,
Right. I can
so
tell you
because this
record-
is a committee appointed through you, then if we had a request, well, basically what you're saying is we need to figure out what it's gonna cost, send a request to you for you to send for the,
There is no budget in order to pay. My understanding was the
Yes,
departments are
but-
gonna pay on their own.
The
So
departments-
we are,
oh,
the town is
the
completely
department's
out
own
The
of
guys.
the actual,
So why don't you just have Eileen send us a bill?
That works.
Okay, gotcha.
And
Who do I send it to, which department?
send it to her.
Send it to Stuart, Stuart will figure out this.
So we'll figure it out from there.
Stuart will figure out a nice
How much to pay
80-20
you.
split.
How much to pay you as well. I don't know what you normally.
I usually go for 20 a meeting.
20 meeting, perfect.
An hour?
Meeting.
A meeting?
I mean,
That's why she had to come here on her bicycle.
at least while
Keep
it's
our
light
meetings
out.
down to an hour each time.
Perfect.
And if you want a reference, the recording secretary policy for the town is $20 an hour.
Who's gonna post the agenda with the town clerk for the next meeting?
Chairman should send it.
I will work up an
If you
agenda.
work it up, you can send it right to the town clerk.
Beautiful.
And the minutes, they go
I'll send
to where?
Peter.
Send them to me and then I turn them into the town
Send it right
clerk.
to the town clerk.
Beautiful. I can
She
do
does
that.
everything right to putting it online. She posts everything, she'll post your agenda outside, she'll
Yeah,
post it online.
do you have my email address? It's the one on here because my town one keeps shutting down on me about every
I'm sure
3
we've got
weeks.
it.
Yeah, she doesn't have that list.
Oh, okay.
And where are the videos on that?
They're not town videos.
What do you do with the video when you're complete with the meeting?
I put them on YouTube. You can find them at
Oh, you do?
Willington Public Meetings,
Oh,
I
okay.
believe it's called.
That's the answer to the question. Perfect.
Camera's pointed right at you.
I like that.
Remember, the camera adds 10 pounds.
I gotta talk. Yeah, awesome.
Keep it pointed
How
that
many cameras
way.
are on here?
I gotta stop talking.
35 cameras on me.
All right,
Put a powder next time.
Sorry.
Hey, suggest a motion to adjourn?
You may, and I'm looking for a second. There we go. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
no matter where we're gonna need seating for more than this.